I was happening, y'all. It's your boy Rico from StreetScores. I have a lot of major updates for the Washington Commanders today. We have a bunch of injury news, like B.Rob is back at practice. That's big time news. Of course, Jonathan Allen was placed on IR, but another defensive lineman was also placed on IR. That caught me off guard. I have the entire Wednesday injury report for y'all who didn't participate, who was limited, who was full and good to go for this upcoming game against the Panthers. Also, the Washington Commanders signed 3 defensive linemen, 2 all the way to the 53-man roster, and another one to the practice squad. Also, Quinn spoke with the media today and had a few interesting things to say. And this video is sponsored by BetUS and Sportsbook. And before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. I got y'all covered on everything Commanders, and y'all already know every week, of course, I'm gonna do a preview video for this upcoming matchup against the Panthers. What are their weaknesses? What are their strengths that we need to worry about? What is our formula to success against them? But also throughout the week, today's Wednesday, I'm giving you the first injury report. We also have another one coming Thursday and another one Friday, and then before Sunday, which I will be live streaming that entire game against the Panthers, I will give y'all the full-blown injury report of who's out, who's good to go on both sides of the football and for both teams as well. But let's go ahead and dive into this video right now, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so we have good news and bad news. We're going to get the bad news out the way first. So, as I already said before the intro, Jonathan Allen was placed on IR. That's obvious. We already knew that was on the way. Already did a whole video breaking down his exact injury. I showed you the clip of when it happened, how it happened, and all of that, and like how we're gonna make up for it. What are some options? Whose turn is it to step up now in his place with them being gone and everything like that? That's a whole nother video that I dove into for like 20 plus minutes if you want to go check that out. But even beyond just Jonathan Allen getting placed on IR, how about rookie 7th round pick defensive end Javonte Jean-Baptiste was also placed on the injured reserve list, and that one did catch me off guard. I know he got hurt against the Ravens, and everybody was more so focused on Dorrance Armstrong because when he got hurt, our defense looked completely different. Then later on, Jonathan Allen got hurt, and the Jonathan Allen injury really makes me mad because if it weren't for the refs throwing that flag on that Benjamin St-Juste pass interference that they said it was, which led to them, you know, if that was 3rd and long, we would have gotten off the field. Our offense would have had the ball back only down 7. Maybe we go and tie it up rather than going down 14. And I believe Jonathan Allen got hurt later on that drive. So like that flag that the ref threw like really hated on us in that game, and it sold us long term with Jonathan Allen being hurt as well. So the refs really owe us one for that one. But Dorrance Armstrong got hurt, but at least I'm gonna give y'all his update a little later, but he should be at least good to go within some relative range of not gone for season type of situation. His news isn't great either, but it's not Javonte Jean-Baptiste and Jonathan Allen. The Javonte Jean-Baptiste, we saw he got hurt, we got the information, but everybody was more so focused on Jonathan Allen and Dorrance Armstrong because they're starters. But the Javonte Jean-Baptiste news and his injury update after the game, like immediately after the game that same night, didn't go unnoticed. But I didn't expect it to be an injured reserve level injury where we lose him the rest of the season. And it really sucks because he was just starting to flash these past few games, especially against the Ravens. Like, he had a real impact with him getting more snaps because Dorrance Armstrong got hurt. Cleveland Farrell just came back from injury, so he's not playing very often. He was starting to really step up, and he was outplaying his 7th round draft pick. You don't really expect the 7th round draft pick to really contribute much, and especially to get a sack on Lamar Jackson, arguably the most mobile quarterback in the NFL. There's potential there, and I'm excited about his future, but it does suck that we have lost him for the remainder of the 2024 season from what it seems. Also, the Washington Commanders went ahead and signed defensive end Jaylen Holmes. We're going to definitely talk about him. We signed Sheldon Day from the practice squad up to the active squad. So he's been on our practice squad for a while now. It only makes sense that they would move him up from the practice squad because we need somebody in place of Jonathan Allen, not to directly replace him like I broke down in my video from a couple of days ago, but just everybody is going to move up one spot. Deron Payne, if he already wasn't defensive tackle 1, is now officially defensive tackle undisputed. Johnny Newton goes from defensive tackle 3 to defensive tackle 2. Phidarian Mathis goes from number 4 to 3. You needed a number 4, and rather than bringing in a random guy off the street, they're bringing in Sheldon Day, who's been practicing with the team for a few weeks now, so they know exactly how Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. want things done from a defensive lineman perspective. What's everything required mentally, physically to perform in their defense like this, especially knowing the system, the X's and O's, and even how they want to practice. Like, it's a lot of things like that are very small things as to why, like Noah Brown, even after we signed him, he didn't play against the Buccaneers. We signed him before the Buccaneers game, but he wasn't ready to actually play until week 2 against the Giants. It's little things like that, practice, even off the field, even things outside of just what happens on the field on Sundays. So I'm not surprised that they went with the guy that's already on the practice squad. He may not be their permanent option to kind of take the place of like a Jonathan Allen for now, as like that 4th spot on the defensive line depth chart going into games, but he's definitely the option right now since he has the most time spent with the Commanders in 2024 out of any other option you could probably bring in off the street. Speaking of off the street, I did a whole video breakdown on Carl Davis, the fact that we brought in All-Pro Kyle Fuller, Kendall Fuller's brother, for a workout last night. I talked about that last night, and then Carl Davis, I talked about how we signed him, so I'm not going to do a deep dive into that, but he went to the practice squad. We didn't bring him all the way to the 53-man roster. He has experience under Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. because he was with Dallas very recently, but he's not Sheldon Day, who's been with Joe Witt Jr. and Dan Quinn in 2024. So there's a difference there, and that's why Sheldon Day is going from the practice squad to the 53-man roster, and Carl Davis is going to the practice squad rather than just skipping Sheldon Day in line. They care more about continuity and understanding of the defense over anything else, talent, whatever you want to call it. And again, my whole message behind Jonathan Allen not being here is next man up, and like I've already said a couple of times this week already in a couple of videos, it's time for Johnny Newton and Phidarian Mathis to step up. It's time for Deron Payne to show up. Because you can argue the first couple of weeks he was more impactful than Jonathan Allen, even though he didn't have the stats to prove it. Like some of those Cleveland Farrell sacks that he had, especially the first 2, were off of Deron Payne pressures. The quarterback avoiding Deron Payne ran into Cleveland Farrell for those first 2 sacks. I think 1 against the Buccaneers, 1 against the Giants. He was impacting the game, but he just wasn't having the stats. Lately, Jonathan Allen's been a little bit more impactful. Now we lost Jonathan Allen. So again, Johnny Newton, Phidarian Mathis, we need you to step up. We need y'all to not play like a rookie and a career backup so far through the first couple of years of Phidarian Mathis, and we need Deron Payne to show up. There's a difference. Also, moving forward, this also means that Jamin Davis may start to play a little bit more because he was inactive against the Ravens, and then the week before that, he only came in really from what I remember like garbage time against the Browns. I think against the Cardinals and like a couple of games before that, he would kind of come in as part of like a rotation. He played a few more snaps in the games leading up to that, but going against the Browns, he didn't get until garbage time, and then again, he was a healthy scratch going against the Ravens, just like Emmanuel Forbes. But now, with the shuffle of everything, losing Jonathan Allen and Javonte Jean-Baptiste, I'm assuming that Jamin Davis probably will be on the field a little bit more. Maybe you use Jamin Davis as more of like an off-ball linebacker and you allow Frankie Louvu to rush the quarterback from the edge a little bit more rather than being in coverage. We'll see how that goes. Jordan McGee coming back healthy. I think it's now officially like the deadline for that 21-day window since we've allowed them to practice while still being on IR before you got to put them on IR permanently. So I'm assuming Jordan McGee, and we may even get FL Bada back. So FL Bada, Jordan McGee coming back, Jamin Davis finally probably getting some playing time for the first time in a couple of weeks. That's just kind of like the collaboration of how a lot of people are going to have to step up in place of the 2 guys that we've lost. More than likely, technically 3 at least, Panthers game-wise specifically, because again, Dorrance Armstrong, his injury doesn't seem as long-term as Jonathan Allen or Javonte Jean-Baptiste, but I'm not sure if he plays in this Panthers game, so we may need to be ready to replace 3 guys, 2 starters, and 1 strong contributor that was starting to flash in Javonte Jean-Baptiste. And again, to my point that it's time for everybody to step up. I mean, shouts out to my boy Jamal at Let Mal Tell It. Make sure you follow him on Twitter, subscribe to him on YouTube, all of that, man. He pointed out the fact that Deron Payne has seen 74 double teams so far this year, Jonathan Allen 71, and Phidarian Mathis 21 in 6 games. That number is likely growing significantly higher, especially for Phidarian Mathis in the near future with Jonathan Allen out. Everybody's about to get double teamed more. Johnny Newton's going to get double teamed more. Everybody has to play their part and basically take on the load that Jonathan Allen has left behind by not being here. And I also feel like this right here here was good discourse on Twitter about depth concerns. I really like this discussion. So you had Linnell Willingham. He tweeted, I am concerned about the lack of professional depth alongside Washington's defensive line and other positions for that matter. And I agree. That's a fair assessment of what they've been doing team building wise, even though it is only year one in a rebuild. So how much depth can they have? I'm happy that we even have starters that can go out there and lead us to a 4-2 start, because that's just insane already, just 6 weeks into an entirely new thing, a whole new rebuild, everything. And then shouts out to Disco because he brings up a good point. He said, I've always found the depth conversation to be a bit overrated because most NFL teams have a pretty steep drop off from starter to backup in terms of talent and production. I do think our depth is untested, but we'll just have to see. I completely agree. I feel like that is fair discourse on both sides. I'm more so on Disco side, where it's kind of like, I mean, how much depth can you really ask for at the end of the day? First of all, like I mentioned, it's year one of a rebuild. We should be happy that we even have quality starters. Having quality depth is a whole nother thing that even a lot of the great teams, like if the Ravens, if Lamar Jackson gets hurt, or really if Roquan Smith gets hurt, I mean, that's a completely different game. So the depth argument, I do feel like is a little bit overrated, but it's still, at the same time, I understand what Linnell is saying, where he's like, that we do need to do a better job, or even as fans, we kind of have the right to kind of wonder like what's going on with the depth situation. Can Adam Peters and Dan Quinn dig deep into the comb through free agency, whatever they need to do to make sure they find quality players? I feel like there's also another side of this where it's about development. Maybe you don't sign the flashiest player from free agency or trade for a guy, but maybe you just have the correct coaching staff that can maximize the talent that you do have, and now your depth is better just due to better coaching and development from your coaching staff. So I mean, it's all kinds of different ways. I just wanted to bring that up. Also, from the same tweet thread from Linnell saying what he said about his concerns for the depth on the team, Resh Manuel also brought up a good point. He said, related, I think we're past the time to have a conversation about Deron Payne. I think the team has an out at the end of this season contract-wise, and I'm tempted to take it. I get that his position isn't one of stats, but it is one of impact, and it's been subpar too often from him so far this season. That's also a valid criticism right there. Just food for thought that I wanted to throw out there. Also, moving on, just to let you know, between Sheldon Day, Jaylen Holmes, and Carl Davis, the 3 defensive linemen that we signed again. Carl Davis went to the practice squad. The other 2 guys on like the actual 53-man roster ready to play against the Panthers type of thing. Just to let you know, well, technically, again, Sheldon Day was already on the practice squad for the past couple of weeks, so technically we didn't we signed him technically to the 53-man roster, but it's not like he just came from another team when we did it. He was already on the Washington Commanders practice squad for the past few weeks. He more so got upgraded to the active roster. We signed Jaylen Holmes to the active roster, signed Carl Davis to the practice squad, if you're keeping up with me. But my point is, the 2 new guys, because again, technically Sheldon Day, even though he's going from practice squad to the active roster, he's technically not new. The other 2 guys are, but just to let you know, that Carl Davis was previously with the Cowboys, so you see that they're definitely prioritizing making sure they're bringing in guys that are already familiar with the system of Joe Wood Jr. and Dan Quinn, so they know how they want things done off the field as well, but most importantly on the field wise, we kind of get like a certain jump start, and there's a certain floor with a guy that already knows your defense and what you're asking them to do. These may not necessarily be the most talented guys, but you can argue that they're as ready as they could possibly be to go out there as soon as possible to replace Jonathan Allen and Javonte John Baptiste, where we lost in them. Also, moving on, I feel like out of all of the names that are the most intriguing that between those 3 guys is probably Jaylen Holmes. And as you can see on the screen, you can see him at practice right now. And he is a Norfolk, Virginia native, so that's pretty cool that he's like a hometown guy. Just to kind of give you a quick background on him, because it's not like we just signed an all-pro player out of nowhere or anything like that. So I'm not trying to sell y'all on a fake dream, but just some background information on the guy that is being brought in and that may have an impact for us, because again, he skipped the line. Sheldon, who again went from practice squad to active roster, he's put in a few weeks of practice with his team to prove that if there's an injury, that's why you got upgraded. And then the other, one of the 2 new guys is Carl Davis, who signed off the street. He went to practice squad. He's not going to play against the Panthers more times than not. Whereas Jaylen Holmes went from off the street to ready to play against the Panthers immediately. And so I feel like if anybody is the most intriguing that we should probably do some background information on, it's him, because he skipped the line. So Just the background information real quick. After being cut just hours before the Jets game with the Bills, veteran defensive lineman Jaylen Holmes found a quick landing spot that's closer to home. The 28-year-old on Wednesday signed a free agent deal with the Washington Commanders. He goes from a team that's currently struggling, led by Aaron Rodgers, even though they did just trade for Devontae Adams, but who would have known going into the season that the Commanders would be this much better than the Jets right now. But either way, he's going from a franchise that's struggling to a franchise that's making a splash in the NFL with rookie quarterback Jayden Daniels, and they spelled Jayden wrong in this article. Shouts out to 13newsnow.com, but make sure you get my quarterback's name right, man. And first-year head coach Dan Quinn, that's first in the NFC East right now. I love to hear it. The former Lake Taylor Titan great will help fill the void on Washington's defensive line since the season-ending injury to Jonathan Allen. And let me add Javonte Jean-Baptiste. Don't overlook my boy, man. He was starting to flash for real, man. I'm really hurt about him being hurt because we were really starting to see some potential there. And boy, we need pass rush. I know our secondary hasn't been playing well, but you know a dominant pass rush will help with that a lot. If these guys don't have to cover as long, they won't look as bad. I mean, even just Zay Flowers alone, some of those catches that he had was like Lamar Jackson had plenty of time in the pocket, and eventually Zay Flowers just broke free, you know, kind of later in his routes. And I feel like with an improved pass rush, that would help a lot. So hopefully this Jaylen Holmes guy is better than we think. But continuing and finishing up with the article, he said Holmes was selected in the 4th round of the 2018 NFL Draft out of Ohio State by the Minnesota Vikings. He also made stops with the Saints, Giants, Bears, and most recently, the Jets. And also, shouts out to my guys at the Burgundy Zone. I was just on their show earlier today. Make sure you go check them out. Make sure you go follow them on Twitter, subscribe to them on YouTube, and check out the entire live stream. They're doing great things over there. But he also brought up the fact when I was with them, Dan Quinn said in his press conference that apparently that they were already familiar with Jaylen Holmes. And they said that after they signed him, he got 2 texts from Jets players saying that basically we got a stud and that they will miss having him. And he's been a beast over there, and there's just currently no room on their active roster. Now, of course, that sounds really nice. That sounds like a great thing. But at the same time, if he was really that good, you would have found a way to keep him. But it sounds good that maybe at the very least, he's better than what we have here as far as a guy that we could bring in to be like one of our backup defensive linemen while we're struggling for depth right now. So at the very least, that's great news. That's good news. Don't read into it too much. Like we just signed Aaron Donald and Khalil Mack. But still, that's pretty cool to hear that like Jets players immediately went to Dan Quinn and text him like on the side like, hey man, y'all are getting a guy. So make sure y'all really rock with him. We were sad to see him leave and things like that. That's cool. Also, just to update you, Carl Davis will be wearing number 91. That was last worn by John Ridgeway. I already miss him with the problems that we're dealing with right now, but I understand you try to get the value that you can in a trade for him while the value is still hot and high. Also, Jaylen Holmes will be wearing number 96. That was last worn by Narell Pollard. Just to let you know. Now, moving on, we also have positive Brian Robinson news. And I'm not going to lie, while you're looking at these highlights, he looks pretty good to me. Like against the Browns and the 7 carries that he got. Granted, he got 2 touchdowns out of those 7 carries, but still, you could just tell he just didn't look the same. Like he was looking hesitant. Even when he would get up, he would kind of get up slow. He just looked like he was in pain. You would see him on the sideline in pain and things like that. But in these practice clips that you're looking at right now, I don't really see that too much from him. So I'm happy to hear it and see that he is officially back. Dan Quinn even said in his press conference today that, quote, "We're really pumped about that," unquote. He says that giving B.Rob the game off was the right call, but it was difficult. He admitted that not having Brian Robinson against the Ravens was difficult. Now, I feel like it would have definitely have made a difference in that game, but would it have made enough of a difference for us to win the game? I'm not sure, but Brian Robinson was definitely missed. I mean, I was even watching like other people, like national analysts, break down that game, and they were even bringing up the fact that, Brian Robinson was not there, and you could tell. So definitely, it really sucks to hold him out against arguably the toughest opponent we're going to play all season. Would have been really nice to have him, but at the same time, it's worth it in the long term. And I like the fact that Dan Quinn is this transparent with us, even admitting that, like, man, it would have been really nice to have him against the Ravens, but we did what was best long term. And I'm happy that they did it. It's going to be nice to have him back against the Panthers. This may be a situation that hopefully, I'm not overlooking the Panthers, but hopefully we just gained so much of a lead against them that we can rest, just like how we rested Jayden Daniels like early fourth quarter against the Browns. Maybe we can rest Brian Robinson even sooner than that against the Panthers. We'll see. Now, before we move on to the rest of this video, of course, I gotta let y'all know that this show is provided by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino, and if you're looking for a sports book, it should be BetUS for sure. First of all, they have the fastest payouts in the industry, and I know y'all want y'all money fast, and right now, BetUS is offering you a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit and a 125% sign-up bonus on your next 2 deposits for up to $2,000 with code YOUTUBE150 YouTube 150. They also have a fast and easy deposit and withdrawal process too, so it's kind of like, why not, for real? Now, while we're here, let's take a look at some of their betting lines that they have going on, some interesting bets that we can get into directly from their website. And we haven't talked about this in like a week or two, but I think it's time to look at BetUS lines for Jayden Daniels' potential of winning most valuable player in the NFL right now. As of right now, today, he has plus 1,200 odds. It moves, it fluctuates, it goes up, and then maybe after the Ravens game, maybe it went down in some people's odds. You just never know how people feel. But right now, his odds are at plus 1,200, which is, I mean, better than every quarterback in the NFL. I mean, he's tied with Brock Purdy, but better than everybody else other than CJ Stroud, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Pat Mahomes. As of right now, he has better odds over everybody else in the NFL, no matter position, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, whatever you want to say, edge rusher that somehow could potentially win MVP, even though I doubt it. This is more of like a quarterback race. But regardless, he has better odds than everybody else. That's even better odds than Justin Jefferson, better odds than Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff on that elite offense that those Detroit Lions are deploying right now. So shouts out to Jayden Daniels for that, and shouts out to the bettors for knowing that what we got going over here in Jayden Daniels. We're not talking about offensive rookie of the year. Again, that's already a Rizap. Like, we're talking about MVP right now, and he's like top 5, top 7 in odds for MVP. Now, say if you wanted to take those odds and you wanted to put $100 down on it, if you did it today while the odds are still plus 1,200, that $100 could get turned into $1,200 at the end of the season if he actually ends up winning an MVP award. I like that bet. Also, if you don't want to put that much money up there, if you want to just say, let's do $10, you could end up winning $120 by the end of the season, just by only putting up 10 on Jayden Daniels winning MVP. And I don't think it's as unlikely as some people may think. That's probably a good bet, but as I always urge every video, please make sure y'all gamble responsibly above all else. But hey, man, if you really feel like Jayden Daniels can win MVP, this is a good time to put down that bet. Because just say, for example, if he starts balling out for the rest of the season, like going even harder, and we're sitting with a really nice record with like 8-3 or something like that, just say, for example, hypothetically, those odds are only going to increase, which means you would make less money from it. So if you do plan on putting this down and plan on putting money on this bet, the earlier the better, I would say. But again, I'm gonna keep constantly urging y'all to please gamble responsibly. And again, right now, BetUS is offering you a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit and a 125% sign-up bonus on your next 2 deposits for up to $2,000 with code YouTube150. That's YOUTUBE 150. Now let's get back to the video on why y'all pulled up. Now, I also have other injury updates. I saw John Com tweet, tight end Zach Ertz and wide receiver Terry McLaurin not practicing today. And I'm not gonna lie, I immediately saw that and immediately panicked. I was like, wait, what's going on? But in that same tweet, he said vet day off. But I really wish he could have started with vet day off 4 and then said Zach Ertz and Terry McLaurin, rather than just saying they're not practicing today and then putting vet day off right afterwards, man. Man, John Con, come on, man. You got to save us a little bit of stress on a random Wednesday like this, man. Also, of course, Dorrance Armstrong did not practice today. So even though we lost Jonathan Allen and Javonte Jean-Baptiste to the injured reserve, so that's season ending at the very least for Jonathan Allen and Javonte Jean-Baptiste. We'll see if that's like a 4-weeker or maybe even longer than that. Maybe a season ending. We'll see. But Dorrance Armstrong is also hurt as well, so we more than likely will not have him against the Panthers, but we'll see. No use in rushing them back, especially against them when we're going to need them more against the Bears in 2 weeks and then the Steelers 2 weeks after that. We'll see. Also, Dan Quinn said that Emmanuel Forbes will get another chance. Again, he was a healthy scratch along with Jamin Davis against the Baltimore Ravens, but even though there's no injuries to the cornerback group right now, nothing severe enough to where it's like, okay, Emmanuel Forbes will step up into somebody's place, Dan Quinn, I guess, feels like from what he saw against the Ravens, he'll play as well. Now, if you take a look on the screen right now, here's the official injury report for the Washington Commanders from Wednesday, October 16th's practice. Tyler Owens still not participating in practice with a shin injury, which really sucks special teams wise, but he hasn't played defensively for us, so we should be fine. And we have a lot of other great special teamers, even though Tyler Owens was demanding double teams on special teams. So with him on the field, we're way better at it, but we're still pretty good even with him out. Then Nick Allegretti, limited, but he's typically limited in practice. I'm not worried about that at all. Noah Brown, limited. He was limited last week, still plays. Same thing with Percy Butler. Cleveland Farrell's working his way back from missing a few games for us, and he's limited. I'm pretty sure he'll play, but he's probably still not 100%. Still dealing with that knee injury that he's been dealing with all the way since training camp. Then you have Frankie Louvu, now apparently on the injury report with a toe injury. I will keep y'all updated on that one because that's a new one. He was limited. Maybe that's why he wasn't as effective against the Ravens. We'll see. Then Quan Martin, neck injury, still limited. He's been dealing with that for like a week or two now as well, so I think he's good to go. And then again, Terry McLaurin and Zach Ertz both out with rest. Somehow Terry McLaurin was limited with rest, which is interesting. So I guess he just didn't participate in practice as much as usual because of rest, but typically people just sit out due to rest. But I guess because Zach Ertz is older, that's why he sat out. Terry McLaurin did like some of the work. Then Deron Payne, even still dealing with the knee injury right now, he's limited. We'll see where that's going. Brian Robinson, the good news is that he's limited. You know, a lot of these other guys you see limited, you're like, oh, what's going on now? What's new? Brian Robinson limited is a positive trajectory on his health. That's a good indication that he's getting better. Then, of course, Emmanuel Forbes and Jordan McGee, full participants. I'm hoping we see Jordan McGee out there because we need another linebacker on the field. Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu have to be tired of playing almost every snap, every game so far this year, especially Bobby Wagner at his age. Playing at an elite level, but man, Jordan McGee could especially help when it comes to coverage ability. Now, some practice notes. And as you can see on the screen, the reason I'm showing you this clip of Jayden Daniels in the balaclava is because, man, poor Jayden. If you really sit back and think about it, this temperature that's going on right now, even in Atlanta, while I'm recording this, is 52 degrees at night. And it was somewhere in like the upper 40s last night and things like that. I don't even know what's going on in the DMV exactly weather-wise, but I'm pretty sure it's colder than it is down here. And poor Jayden Daniels going from the IE right outside of LA, that Southern California weather, to going to college in Arizona, college in Louisiana, and then now he has to deal with a DMV winter. I mean, he may see snow for the first time in his entire life right now. So I'm curious to see how he's going to deal with those temperature changes. Will he be the type of guy that can continue to play well even when the temperatures get cold? Because as great as Peyton Manning is, certified Hall of Famer, he struggled in the winter. I'm hoping Jayden Daniels isn't that type of guy. He hasn't had much practice in his life so far. Hopefully he can figure it out as soon as possible. Also, shouts out to Chick Hernandez because he's one of the people that's part of the Commanders media. I did not know that they provided the media team with pizza every time. I believe every practice and things like that, they provide pizza for those guys, and I'm not sure if that was happening under Ron Rivera and Dan Snyder, but that's just really cool. So if that's new under Josh Harris and Adam Peters and these guys and Dan Quinn, shouts out to them for that. I had no idea that was a thing. It has really nothing to do with what's going to happen on the field or the football team, but I just thought that was really cool for the front office and those guys to make sure that the media team gets fed. I mean, they do not have to do that. And then moving on to Dan Quinn, he spoke to the media after practice today. First of all, he talked about the Washington Commanders have found their franchise quarterback. I mean, he just straight up said it, like just plain and simple. We have our guy, and that is a huge piece of the puzzle. He literally said, there's a common thread among the top quarterbacks he's been around and now Jayden Daniels. He said, quote, the common thread is relentless work ethic. I can't wait to see him grow. He is absolutely relentless about it, unquote. And I agree. That is the common. I mean, Tom Brady, you can say whatever you want about him, but his work ethic was arguably second to none. And Jayden Daniels has that same work ethic with the fact that he can also run and use his legs. So Jayden Daniels is going to be a problem for a long time for the rest of the NFL. And I'm just so thankful that he's on our side and we don't have to play against him, boy. I know the rest of the NFC East is terrified. Also, Dan Quinn's message to the media, well, really to the team, but he was letting the media know what he was telling them is ignore the record, man. Carolina may be 1-5 on the season, but the Commanders understand any given Sunday, anything can happen. Jayden Daniels also echoed those sentiments as well. We are not overlooking the Carolina Panthers at all. Jayden Daniels basically said, you can lose to anybody any week. It's the NFL. That's what it's here for. Dan Quinn specifically said, quote, we got plenty to work on. We're absolutely going to sharpen our game as strong as we can, unquote, getting ready for the Panthers, and and we're not overlooking them. Dan Quinn also said that he and Adam Peters talk about the Commanders roster all the time, and it's not just related to the upcoming trade deadline, so maybe we shouldn't overthink it, but Dan Quinn and Adam Peters have been talking. We'll see if anything happens before this trade deadline. I'm gonna keep y'all updated on that. Any potential trades, any rumors that are coming out, and of course, if we do end up making any moves, y'all already know I'm gonna have the super breakdowns for y'all, the advanced stats, the Pro Football Focus grades, all of that, the X's and O's, how they fit on the team, so make sure you stay tuned for that if we do anything. Also, before we get up out of here, Doug Williams is on the list of 25 finalists for the Hall of Fame's contributor category. Only one person will be chosen from this category though, so it's a pretty long shot, but just to update you on that, I'm happy to hear that. Also, we will be, of course, honoring Darrell Green at this upcoming Panthers game. They even gave him his own suite. I'm gonna talk about that in my Panthers preview later on this week when I'm doing my breakdown of their weaknesses and strengths and all of that type of stuff, so make sure you stay tuned for that because we're gonna fully dive into that in that video. Also, Troy Aikman was interviewed by the PFT commentator and those guys on the network that he's on with DraftKings and all of those guys, and he was asked if you had to basically buy stock right now, the team that's surging up that you believe is going to be one of the greatest teams in the NFL, but you're buying them while they're low. You're not picking the Chiefs because they're already great. They've been great. We're talking about the team that's like, if you had to put money on a stock right now and potentially get your best value in return for it, who would you pick? And Troy Aikman just simply said the Washington Commanders immediately. He didn't even have to think about it. Washington Commanders immediately. It's a whole minute and 30-second clip if you wanted to go check that out because I thought it was really interesting. He breaks down exactly why he picked the Commanders and all of that. You know, PFT commentator is a Commanders fan, so he was happy to hear it. But Troy Aikman was dead serious. He was like, it's got to be to watch the Commanders. I don't see how they basically don't get even better than they already are right now. And I love to hear that from an ex-Cowboy. I'm not going to lie. I wish Troy Aikman was commentating that game against the Bears that got flexed over a guy like Tony Romo. But we'll be all right, man. We'll be all right. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please still farm that like button, still farm the subscription button, still farm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all the content. Really appreciate y'all. Make sure you do not leave this video out leaving a like. And of course, let me know in the comment section how you feel about everything going down right now. How do you feel like Jaden Daniels will deal with the cold weather? Do you think he'll just be another day at the office and he'll adapt to it very quickly? He's exceeded all expectations we've had for him so far. Maybe he'll exceed those as well. But it is an interesting thought that this guy has never had to deal with the cold. Also, how do you feel about B.Rob potentially being back for the Panthers? How do you feel about Jonathan Allen and JJB being placed on IR? How do you feel about the entire injury report I gave you and the 3 defensive linemen that we brought to the team? Let me know if you feel like any of those guys have some potential to them that we may need to pay some attention to, and maybe they'll have a bigger impact on the rest of the season than we think, at least more than I hope. Let me know how you feel about all of that in the comment section. I'm going to try my best to read and reply to as many comments as possible. And of course, remember that this video is sponsored by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino, and please make sure if you don't do nothing else, please make sure you gamble responsibly, man. Please do that one. I'm gonna catch y'all later. Again, do not leave this video without leaving a like. I'm out.